Brother Damon, are you there? Unmute your mic, Brother Damon. All right. Afuera. Can you hear us, Brother Damon?
Yes, I can hear y'all.
Is that your laptop?
Yes, it's my laptop, but I can't see you. It's frozen on my end.
Okay.
Go on. I might just log off
Okay.
and go on my phone.
We can see you.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna get on my phone. Y'all go ahead.
Sister, please, how do you spell your name?
Alicia.
Alicia. Okay, great.
I pronounce it Alicia.
Alicia.
Yes.
Okay, you got it, sister. I'll make sure. I'm glad I asked you. Assalamu alaikum. Brother Damon and I have been eagerly anticipating round 2 with Brother Timothy, but we told ourselves this year, brother and sister, that we were going to focus on couples. We were going to focus on couples because this is the ideal, particularly couples who've been holding it tight, you know, staying together and working things out, going through the difficulties. We just seem to have so much more depth to share when couples are on together. So we definitely want to thank you for joining the conversation, Brother Timothy and Sister Alicia.
Thank you for having us.
You are very welcome.
Brother Damien.
You know, what's so fascinating, one of the things, Sister Alicia, that Brother Damon and I were just extremely tickled over was how bold Brother Timothy was when he found you to be his wife. Many of us in the nation, we think we're going to go find the sister in the mosque already. And we sit and wait on a mystery God, and then sometimes we kind of doubt the power within ourselves to really go out and search and find. And so we just really admired that desire for Brother Timothy to find him a wife. Sister, from your vantage point, could you please talk about how that was for you and some of the things that you saw in your husband that made you to know this was the right man for you?
That's a really good question. When I met him, he presented himself in such a manner that was professional, articulate. He was well groomed. Hair was nice, teeth were nice. But when I saw him do prayer, it was something that did something to my heart, when I saw him do prayer and actually watched him do the salat. It did something to my heart. And I knew that I wanted a man that was God-fearing. That was first. And, that would love me and take care of me and protect me. And he just exuded those traits just without even like speaking, in his actions, he would ask, is there anything I can do for you? Are you covered for anything? Do you need any assistance? It was his intentions just to make sure that I was okay. And that was in that beginning phase. And that it touched my heart.
Man. Yes, man.
And it helped that when my grandmother met him, she liked him right off.
Yeah.
And Madea was like, you weren't pulling anything past her. And then when my mother met him, she said, that is a man of character. And if you don't want no husband, you better leave that man alone because he wants a wife. And those two women who were the prominent figures in my life, because they loved him and they received him and they saw something in him, it aided to me knowing that this was the direction that I needed to continue to move towards.
My goodness.
Let me just say this, that with what I presented to her was the FOI training,
Yes.
you know, and a brother that was being polished and groomed by the fruit of Islam. And you know, our teachings and our grooming of men is the best. It's the best in the world.
That's
It's
right.
the best in a world. And so she had no idea, you know, of my past. You know, you know, because you know that you know what I presented to her was just you know my striving, you know, to be top soldier.
Come on.
So you know, and so that is you know that you know I was pleased, and she was pleased. But you know, we're taught all those things, man. How to take care of ourselves. You know what we should do. You know to protect the persons that we love. So you know, I just exhibited. I tried to exhibit all those things that I had learned and was learning. You know, through the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, as far as being an FOI.
Wow. Yes, sir. Now, sister, one of the things you just mentioned was how your mother and your grandmother were very key in not only just raising you, but also looking at your husband for you. One thing Brother Damon and I have been discussing is how necessary it is for somebody other than ourselves, for somebody who loves us, to look at who we're choosing.
That's right.
Yeah.
Would you please discuss how important that was for you in their looking at Brother and you agreeing with them and deciding to marry Brother Timothy?
For me, I was married previously, and so I had a unsuccessful relationship, and so I knew that support, it meant more than me deciding on my own because of the experience. I think Madia was she in her 80s at that time, or
She was in her 80s.
I think she was in her 80s at that time. And, that experience plus my mother's experience, like I said, it was a no-go for me. I don't think that we as a community rely on our elders enough. And we go out in making decisions, and very important decisions, life-changing decisions, without counsel. So for me, that was counsel, and I knew those two women were not going to tell me anything that wasn't true, and for my mother to say to me, if you don't really want to be married, let that man go, because he wants a wife. And for her to be able to see that his desire was to have a wife and not to play with me, that was very important. That was a no-go for me. I had to submit to their instructions, their insight, their wisdom, and almost 27 years later, it was the best decision for me at that time in my life. That's not to say that the journey hasn't been without challenges, because we're human. But I think the decision that we made to journey together and choose that we were going to stick and stay.
Yes.
As my Madil would tell me, teeth and tongue fall out, but they still in your mouth. So go home and talk to Tim, so their wisdom and their insight was definitely what was my deciding factor.
Sister, growing up in and with your peers that you grow up with, coming up through middle school, elementary, middle school, high school, for young women in your age group growing up, as a young woman, was it pushed, hey, we're going to get married? Was that something that women talked with each other about coming up through school?
I think in my generation, yes. I'm 54, so I'll be 55 pretty soon. So I'm in that, 60, 70 era. And it was still the norm to be married. That was still the ideal, to be a wife and to have family and, that sort of thing, so I would say, yes, most of the people that I were in school with, I went to college and that was the thing. You going to college to find you a husband. Look in the engineering department or the medical department, that was a lot of their ideology. So I would say, yes. I think over the last maybe 20, 30 years where that has shifted a little bit, where the marital union has not had so much of value because of societal influences, because of, the lack of commitment that, a lot of people, have, the lack of having healthy modeled relationships in front of them. So I think over the last 20, 30 years, what would you say? The last 20 years, maybe that has been on the decline?
I would say crack years changed everything. That era, it changed the whole concept.
Yeah.
And I think it had begun to change as well, but I think the crack era changed everything.
Yeah.
With the crack, because it was a total breakdown of family.
Yeah.
A total breakdown of family. And so the family structure no longer was based on man and woman. It was based on just being together. We didn't used to, my parents used to call it shacking. That was frowned upon. And then it became the norm. It became the norm. It went from frowned upon to becoming the norm. And so now children out of wedlock was kind of frowned upon. Now it's the norm.
Right.
We have children, then we'll get married.
Right.
Think about it. So crack, when they threw crack, and I don't want to place a lot of blame on crack, but that had a great influence on the way the Black community, transformed itself, because we were always been very spiritual people. Our nature to be spiritual and religious. It's our nature to want to be unified, with a woman or a man, man-woman relationship. But that changed. So yeah, I would say within the last 20 to 30 years, that crack years were devastating.
And for you, Brother Timothy, as you were coming up through middle school and high school, was marriage something you knew you wanted?
No, no, because I came along. When I came along, it was the Black, what they call the Black movies were coming along. The Superfly movies and all of that. And so we came along. We were in a Superfly era. Superfly era is that you're a player. You are out there playing. You got a whole bunch of different women, but you had a main one. So in some respects, you still were maintaining the family unity. So that was, the era that we kind of rolled into, but we still had a home base.
Yes.
There was still that home base that you kept sanctified. Even if you had other women outside, you kept your one, and nobody ever messed with this. She never knew about the street business. She never knew about the other business. You kept her, I would say sanctified, but you kept her there. And so that was, the kind of era that, I came up along. And, it developed, as I said, the development went from there to the crack thing, and now it is where it is now. And I think, personally, I think that more people are trying to reconnect with their spirituality. I think it's coming back around. There are more people are trying to connect with their spirituality. It's just that we have a trust basis. Most people that go into relationships have been hurt. Most people that have been in relationships have been done some kind of wrong. So we have a trust basis that is very difficult to overcome sometimes.
Sir. Yes, sir.
So I think
Go right ahead, sister.
I was going to say, I think it's really important to look at it from the perspective of generation and doing what your generation is the 50, 60, 70 era.
Right.
I'm the 60, 70, 80s era. So things begin to shift. And then our family pathology in my family, you know, what I saw modeled was marriage. My parents did get divorced when I was a teen, but my father was always present, always there. I mean, him and my mother got along. He was at every function. My father lived in another city, but when he would come in for any activities that we had, he would stay at my mom's house in the guest room. So what I saw was modeled family. And I wanted to be married since I was probably 8 or 9, 10 years old. I always wanted to be married, you know, so I didn't have any exposure to certain lifestyles out there in the community. You know, I was reared in a really religious environment. And so that played a factor growing up in the church and all of that, you know, so that was what formed my impression of relationship and family. And in my peer group, it wasn't okay to have children outside of marriage. In my peer group experience, you know, it wasn't okay to sleep around. So I think, you know, coupled with the change of societal norms and drugs, you know, we've seen a really big shift to moving away from relationship and relating to one another to individuality and not as a unit. And now, you know, a lot is creating environments that's pulling us back together, right? You know, so you see a lot of people getting back to the earth, out farming, and you see people on social media now, let's build communities, let's build, what did they used to have, compounds? Communes, where you see groups of families buying property and wanting to, you know, come back in the communal type relationship. So it's shifting, but circumstances, social circumstances are causing us to come back. So, you know, there's been a wave of relationship, not relationship, and it's all been, you know, coupled with so many exterior factors, you know.
Yes, ma'am. You know, one good thing that Brother Damon and we discussed that I personally definitely saw in Brother Timothy is it's ideal for a man to search for a wife, woman, wife, and then him bring her into his world. And when Brother Timothy described how he went and sought you out and then married you and then brought you into his world, which included at that time for him, his spiritual base, bringing you into his spiritual world. And you mentioned earlier how his spiritual practice was something that's a characteristic that you admired about him. Would you talk about how valuable that was for you to see him bring you into his world and the things how that transition for you happened?
It was a really normal transition for me. Spirituality for me is not in division, in sex, you know, so it did not matter that he was practicing Islam or any other particular faith base that guided him. It was the spiritual component, the spirituality. And so what my mother said to me when I shared with her that he was in the nation, she just simply said that it does not matter whether he's in the nation, he's Jehovah's Witness, Buddhist, or full gospel, Church of God in Christ, Seventh-day Adventist. it's an individual affair that you have with God. And she said, I've given you everything that I can. And then she said, a house divided cannot stand. So that was her letting me know that I'm cool with it, because what he's exemplifying is a man of God. It wasn't necessarily religion that was being amplified. So for me, it was really normal to transition into a spiritual practice that helped me to be my best self. That wasn't odd for me. It happened so naturally. I think, when I decided to, take the Shahada and recite, I studied like 30 days and then I went and recited, because I knew this was the transition for me to be in unison with my husband. And he didn't force that upon me. He just was the example.
Come on.
And in all actuality, it took me a year, but that year that before I made that transition, I was studying, I was listening to lectures, I was listening to the minister, I was, I was going to the masjid at the masjid, the ministers.
And some of them?
Yeah. What are they, Sunni or?
Yeah, they were Sunni.
And I was just trying to make sure that I was making a sound decision, because whatever it is that I put in my hand or that I say I'm going to do, I want to do it to the best of my ability. And after I heard Minister Ava, I heard Minister Ava, and I was like, okay, yes, this is where I'm supposed to be. And it was a natural transition for me, because I chose to go in that direction.
Right.
It's only a difficult transition for us when we haven't made up in our minds fully.
Wow. Yes,
Because that presents a barrier for us. I didn't have a barrier there. I was all in. I bought into it, hook, line, and everything. So it was a natural transition for me.
Yes, ma'am. We want to go one question, and then we want to transition to the work that you do, sister, in terms of counseling. This one last question I wanted to ask you, Lord Jesus, it was right on the tip of my tongue. But it concerns how much I forgot how I was going to say it. One second. So here you are coming into yourself, and here's Brother Timothy leading that way, going out and finding you. Many times I've noticed how when you don't have someone in your family not erecting those barriers in the family, it can cause the woman to, hey, maybe disagree with the man, but you didn't have that. You had green lights. You had people, your mother and your grandmother, looking out for you. Rather than to make it about the faith, it was making it about you binding with your husband.
Yes.
Let me just say this. I knew that it was important to make a good presentation with those people. I knew that it was important for me to present myself, first of all, to her mother, because, unbeknownst to me that we worked with her mother, and I didn't know that was her mother. But once I found out, it was important that I make a good presentation. Not that I'm always not trying to make a good presentation, but I knew that it was important that I present the best me to both of those individuals. Yes. And the ironic part is that my mother was the one that was telling her not to. I took her home to meet tell them what my mother told you.
I want to hear this.
Alicia, Wayne's in that Muslim group. Don't let him turn you into a Muslim. Hey, I said, it's too late, Nana. And she said, oh, those Muslims are good people.
So yes.
That's beautiful. That's a, a little opposition and a little support.
You know.
All right. Now, sister, not too long after speaking with Brother Timothy, as we got into our first interview, he mentioned the work that you do. And one thing that we've noticed, and especially on social media, it is becoming popular for people to go get therapy. It's really become popular. It started becoming popular for us in about 2010 when the minister asked us to go study Dianetics. But now culturally, because of social media and because of relationship talk shows on the internet, this type of discussion is becoming popular now. Would you please talk about your work as a marriage counselor?
That's a big question. I see a lot of diverse people, not necessarily all marital groups. I see children, teens, women. But I think people are finding out more and more that trauma has affected how they move about in their experience. And because of that, they're meeting the same experience with different people. And they're becoming somewhat self-aware to say, there is something going on and I just need a little assistance to help me guide through this, right? And so, Dianetics, from what I understand, takes us back to those chains of trauma that we've experienced in our lives. And then when you take it as the minister shared of his coming into this world with his mother, it goes even deeper. So you think about, what kind of wound did we marinate in when we were in our mother's bodies for 9 months? That shaped and formed our thinking, because the brain is the first part of to develop. So, if mom was going through trauma, if mom was getting abused, if mom was not being loved or made secure, then certainly that creates some traits in a baby of feeling or sense of lack of safety or security. So we grow up and then we have these family pathologies of how we do things in our family. And then we see certain behaviors modeled, and then we grow up and we repeat those things. And so I think now, with people becoming more self-aware and really needing and desiring changes, they're seeking out assistance. It goes so deep, because when we think about, if we're still affected from slavery, post-slave, disorder.
Yes.
In our genetic makeup, we're still affected by the results of slavery. Certainly we would be affected by trauma that happened 20 years ago or 30 years ago or 15 years ago. So I think people are just becoming more self-aware and realizing what I'm doing isn't working for me and I just need a little help.
Man. I know one of the things Brother Damon and I share, I think this is really one of the things that really, from the beginning, kind of endeared me to Brother Damon, is we had a very similar experience, family life. And some of the difficulties we experienced in our marriages was we had a very difficult time keeping that order in place where it's God, family, nation. We, unfortunately, did the God, nation, family. And what we have really admire about you two, that Brother Timothy and you really exemplify that God, family, nation.
That's
order.
right. That's right.
That order, y'all represent just the way he went about pursuing you and the way you two have been since then. We see that it's definite. would you please talk about how important it is for a man to learn to put his family before everything else under God?
Mm.
Oh, I mean, it's critical. It's critical because we talk about in our nation that strong families make a strong nation. So if you're negating the family, how are you going to produce a strong nation? I mean,
Mm.
it's critical. And I would say to him, you know, because he would be out, you know, in those earlier days in the byways. And I'm like, well, how can you give to others and then come in the house and have nothing to give in here?
Mm.
It doesn't match up. So there has to be a healthy balance of, you know, how we serve and how we serve our family. And there has to be a balance, and we cannot, you know, and unfortunately, you know, from my experience, there have been a lot of families that have gone with needs being met because of the duty that the brothers take on without having the balance.
Mhm.
And I don't know, you know, I've seen quite a few families who have, you know, dissolved because of that.
Yes, ma'am.
And it's hurtful, and I don't know where the resolve comes in that. Of course, we have our duty, but we have to find a way to make sure we're balancing that so that our children see the example of a righteous father and mother striving together, so that our wives, our sisters don't go feeling neglected
Yes, ma'am.
because their husband are giving so much energies and time to the work that they don't feel like they're of value and they're important. So it's very critical.
And I think it's more critical at this point because of the misplacement of the Black man. And I say the misplacement, we have forgotten to protect the Black woman.
Yes, sir.
And so in most relationships that you go into, the woman is feeling neglected already.
Mm.
I mean, you know, she's already feeling neglected. So where does she get that sense of value from if it's not going to be from you? Now, there are times that you have to make a decision. Am I going to go out or am I going to stay in? I chose that I was going to stay in because I knew that what I had, if watered, would grow up to be something beautiful. Now, all of my children have the teachings embedded in them.
Yes, sir.
So they have the knowledge, you know, whether they ever step in to the mosque every day or not, they have the knowledge embedded in. So it's more important to me to have it embedded in them so that when they do their everyday lives, that they go along in a manner that is comparable to a God-fearing life. So that when they're going into a relationship, that they will understand. Because we're teaching our children how to act, even boys and our girls. So, you know, your commitment always has to, if this is the second self of God, the second self of God, that's it. To me, that is saying so much.
Yes, sir.
The second self of God. That means there's nothing else in between. There's God, as you said, and the second self of God. So how do we treat the second self of God? This is where, you know, I gave my service came after God. And I think, you know, as brothers, we have to learn that the service that you give to the lady in your life, that's the next service under God. There's nothing else everything else falls underneath that. Everything else falls underneath that.
And please know that and we are not saying that we don't do our service and our duty to our community. We're not saying that. We're simply saying that there has to be wisdom and balance and love and consideration and care and nurture. When we got married, he was working a whole lot in the field. And it made me feel some kind of way. I have to, be honest. And we just tweaked a little things and structured some things so that there was some boundaries set, So if you're going out after work, what time shall I expect you?
Come on.
If you're doing these things outside, then what responsibilities are you taking care of inside? That's going to help balance the family, especially if I'm working outside of the family. So, just having those little boundaries and balancers and tweaking. So we found a groove that would work for us. And I love the fact that he would be out and sharing with the community, and, he loves the youth, and, I loved it, so I just think that we have to find healthier balance to facilitating all of the responsibilities we have as striving Muslims.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I thought it was very timely that we finally got a chance to sit and talk with the two of you. This week we'll be seeing Brother Nuri. Brother Nuri in the city of Dallas on Saturday and Sunday. And, he's been married for over 25 years, I believe, several years, over 2 decades. And he's been with his wife, and through the difficulties that he's endured as a young man coming into the nation and improving himself, having a family, losing a family member, it's still seeing him represent marriage and relationships and how important it is. It's just so awesome to have you two on together, because really, Brother Timothy just spoke the world of you, sister. And I want to find that desire in myself that Brother Timothy had when he found, because sometimes not having that order correct, you can kind of not see the value in ourselves as compass in us that God will get us to where we want to go, as long as we're seeking the right thing.
I think it is very important, for a man, especially for a brother, to find that balance, and just from the outside looking in, it seems like it's more difficult to find, that person nowadays. It just seems like to me, after, when I hear things and I see things, because as I said, everyone has been hurt. And the further we get along in life, the people that we deal with have been hurt more.
Right.
The further we age, because there's a different demographic, and those people, especially a lot of the women, have been hurt a lot. And so, it becomes a little more difficult and a little more timely, it takes a little more patience. It takes a little more of everything, to help develop, into a healthy relationship, because there's so many trials that you have to go through. But, what I always say, if you find someone that you think that you desire, you like, you have to be patient with that individual. You have to be patient, and you have to realize that everybody comes in as damaged goods. Everybody comes in. I was damaged, she was damaged, everybody comes in as damaged goods. And damaged goods get together, sometimes they can damage each other, or sometimes to me, it's incumbent on the man to do the changing. Now, when I say changing, I mean, I'm not going to change, the way I believe in everything, but, there are different allowances that I have to give. There are different situations when I have to step back and re-examine me. I am the one that is supposed to be the leader, the protector. I am the one that, has to say, we always say, would you rather be happy or would you rather be right? Sometimes I want to choose some happiness, and okay, I don't have to be right all the time now.
Come on.
You
Yes,
know,
sir.
I do not have to be right all the time, and I can live with that. And that was causes, a good relationship.
Mm.
One of the things I would encourage, just as he stated, him making, adjustments and tweaking some things in himself as individuals, when we are looking for our mate, study your own self first. Understand your family pathology. Understand what taught you to be the kind of man that you are. Look deep within yourself and see what comes up as far as those good, bad, ugly, and indifference, so that you can work on what you see. Now, when you get your mate, as we're taught, having your mate is your second part of your faith. So that person is going to help you bring out of you some of those things that we haven't quite mastered as of yet. And sometimes that feels so scary and so frightening, and we abort the process and we run from that. But really, that's a good thing for us, because when we go through our difficulties, if we learn from them, then we move forward in a more healthier, perfected way. We're not perfect, but we're elevating each time to that desired goal that we're striving to get to. And that is to be really a reflection of Allah. And we go through those little prickly places, it helps us to improve. So I would just encourage, look at yourself. And I have to self-examine after we have a situation. We don't have many situations, but we've had situations, and I have to go into my closet and be like, okay, Alicia, where is this coming from? Is it what he said? Is it true? That's first. Is it true? How did he say it? What bothered you about what he said? What can you connect to a pain that is causing you so distress if it's true? And then I go to, I know he loves me. He's not going to do anything intentionally to hurt me. He has my back. This is my ride to life,
Yeah.
So then I have to come to some kind of agreement within myself to accept that challenge and work on me.
Yes, ma'am.
And not point the fingers to blame him for what he's doing. So I think there again, we have a lot of work to do as individual. And when we come together, understanding that we're wounded, so we can have some compassion for one another. We can have some perseverance for one another. We can have some grace for one another. We can be patient with one another and develop those attributes of Allah, and that comes out in your union.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, man. Well, shit, I already feel better. You know what I'm saying? Listening to couples is a little different.
Right.
I feel more hopeful. I feel a little more optimistic. Yes.
So I would say, Brother Fatah, state your intentions. What it is that you desire. Write it down and seek Allah and ask Allah to bring her to you. She will appear. She will appear. State your intentions. You're a God.
Right.
Call her to you. She'll come. But be in that process of self-improving. Whatever those areas that you identify that are a little prickly, that you might need to make some adjustments and tweak, just continue to be working on those while she is in waiting. And then you might just walk past the street and be like, wait a minute. Or you might be at the mosque and someone will tug your heart.
Yes,
But look at within first. Prepare for her, because she's going to be wounded, and it's going to be incumbent upon you to be in your best place so that you're able to guide her and guide your family to the desire that you have, whatever that goal, that desire is, and of course, our ultimate goal is to become in the reflection and image of Allah, exhibiting his attributes.
Yes, ma'am. Praise be to Allah. Thank you. Thank you so much for that, sister. Brother Damon, as we begin to wrap up, is there anything you would like to say, comment, ask? I want to give you the floor as we begin to land this beautiful plane.
I just want to thank them both for coming on the show. People always ask me why I'm so quiet on the show. I said, look, Brother Foster do the interview, I get the guests, and I'm just in the classroom. I'm just a student here to learn.
Thank you, Brother Damon.
Thank you.
For the invitation. Brother Fatah, thank you for the invitation. It's always a pleasure. Every time I speak about marriage, it helps me, because the self-examination process, self-analysis process starts over again, But I think, like I said, it's really incumbent upon the brothers that when you go into a situation, know that you're going in. First of all, know that you're going in for life. Don't have any inhibitions about going in. Just go in. If you think it's right, you're led by a lot. Go into your situation confident, but also go in know that you're gonna have to. At sometimes you're gonna have to protect. Sometimes you're gonna have to protect your feelings, but a lot of times you may have to protect her feelings.
Right.
And in doing so, that may give you some uncomfortability, but we're going for the end. We're not stopping at the beginning. We're going for the end. Everything's about the end, not the beginning.
Yes, sir.
That's right.
Is it okay if I share
Just do.
a little more? Four
Sure.
things that I wanted to lead in our conversations that are behaviors that bring divide or barriers in marital relationship: criticism, defensiveness, contempt, and stonewalling. And so it's very important that when we find ourselves exhibiting these behaviors, that we check that, because if we don't, then that can become a pattern that will be normalized in the relationship. And then we begin to speak to each other in inappropriate ways, harsh ways. We begin to shut down and not allow that open to work things out. So it's very important that we really check ourselves with those behaviors, those things that we identify that could possibly be barriers in our relationship.
Right.
And so I did want to share those four things, because that's something that I see a lot. Even sometimes in the office when I do have couples, they will sit there in front of me and tear each other apart. And I'm like, let's pause. Let's pause
Yeah.
to bring them back to present, to
Yeah.
see, because they get lost in the blaming, criticizing. It was your fault, and we lose the message in there. What was the purpose? What lesson out of this experience? It's an uncomfortable experience, but it is to teach us something, because we're going through it. And as I started our conversation, is that it just brings out those things we haven't quite mastered in ourselves yet. And that's a gift. Allah showing us, look, you still got some stuff that I need you to work on. This is just the catalyst that helped to bring it out,
Right.
So when we look at it from a different set of lenses, then we can go through it differently.
Right. That's very true.
Yeah.
Brother Damon, I want to thank you once again, Brother Damon, for all the hard work you do in making sure we have awesome individuals and lovely couples as we have in Brother Timothy and Sister Alicia. I just want to thank you, Brother Damon.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Before we close,
Mhm.
sister, do you do premarital counseling?
I do.
Yeah, please give your information. I know you said based on their insurance, you probably, but I don't know, maybe you could do a Zoom with somebody, probably something, And I want to do an event in the future. By the grace of Allah, I'll invite you both out. I'm going to try to restart, reboot Hidden Token and just bring the community together and, like I used to do in the past. But please give your website, your email address, so if people want to reach out to you, they can.
My email address is m.i.mcounselingassociates@gmail.com. My number is 214-272-8889.
Yeah. And Sister Alicia, we're gonna be sure to paste that on the video so that it's available through the whole length of the video, your email and your telephone number.
Thank you.
You're very welcome, sister. We just want to thank Brother Timothy. Thank you both again for coming on out.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you, Brother Damon.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Well, inshallah, we'll be seeing you or talking with you all in the very near future. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum
Wa alaikum
salam.
salam. Thank you very much.
Sir.